In this episode of the Hustler's Choice podcast, I have a fellow entrepreneur and a good friend of mine, Zane Campbell, on. We talk about a lot of different things such as perseverance, happiness, and how to know whenever you need to make a lifestyle change. There's a lot of great information, so make sure to take notes and share it with a friend. Other than that, guys, that's all I have to say. And also, at the end of the podcast, make sure to take his social media and give him a follow. So keep crushing it and enjoy.
Hello.
What's going on, Zane?
Not much, man. Early mornings, my favorite. Got my coffee, get ready to go for this podcast.
Let's go and get it. So, we're kind of doing something unusual for both of us, actually, and we are kind of doing a combined podcast. You're going to be asking me some questions. I'm going to be asking you some questions. So, for the listening audience, for both of our audiences, really, they're going to get a lot of value from the things that we're going to be talking about today. So, I'm really excited.
Man, you and me both. This is about to be my favorite podcast of all time, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, so this is actually, I don't want to say this is different, because I've definitely interviewed some people before. However, it is a little bit different in a sense, because typically, when I started my podcast, I would always make separate episodes based off of my YouTube videos, but then it got really difficult for me to do YouTube and podcast into a blog. So then I just started designing my YouTube channels and my videos around my podcast as well. So when I got done with the YouTube video, I could just cut it, put it in my podcast, transfer it over, and have the exact same thing on my podcast. So I've kind of been doing that. So this is going to be my first so-called actually live recorded podcast in quite some time. So I'm really excited.
Absolutely, and it sounds like you were kind of doing the Gary Vee approach. I know that's what he does. He takes his different video content and has his team strip it down to base audio format. So that's awesome.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly
man.
Where I got it from.
Any of the advice I've ever gotten from Gary Vee, he's never led me in the wrong direction. That's something I can genuinely say. I can't say that about everyone.
I completely agree with you, man. I mean, Gary Vee is what started this whole thing for me, honestly, and every piece of advice that I've gotten from him, I truly 100% agree with. And I know, like you said, you can't say that about all people.
Right. I wouldn't say that I agree with everything and all of his viewpoints, but I have to say in a lot of regards, I do. And I always say that he's the main entrepreneur that got me into it. And I was thinking about it the other day of what actually got me started. And there's this other entrepreneur at the time. I remember back in high school, I was like 17. I wasn't even 18 yet. And I was watching this one entrepreneur. I can't even remember his exact name, but he was like 17, 18 years old, and he was running a clothing line. He was doing drop shipping and a couple other things, and I was watching his moves, and from there got inspired. But Gary Vee was the main figure who I really saw the potential of what could be done. And it's crazy how so much can change in a matter of a year, in a matter of 2 years, in a matter of... It hasn't even been 2 years for me on this journey, and it's already been an unbelievable roller coaster. Good, bad, and indifferent. So, well, what do you want to talk about first, man?
Well, man, like I said, we got some series of questions here I've got for you, and I know you've got some for me. You actually kind of just answered one of my questions already off the bat, but I got to know something, honestly, man. It's 7:40, and, it's an early morning. There's one question I'm dying to ask you.
All right, hit me with it, man.
What are you drinking this morning?
What am I drinking? I am drinking decaf coffee. Can you believe that?
Decaf? What are you, 80?
Dude, no, the thing is, I can literally chug an entire pot of coffee, Whenever I say that I drink coffee, a lot of people don't quite understand that I am capable of going through an entire pot of coffee in 1 hour. And that isn't healthy. You and I can both agree that is not healthy for you. So I was like, when your heart rate goes and explodes, bro, you know it's time to cut back. So I haven't drank coffee for about half a week. So it's been...
Wow, I don't really know what I drink, because I use my Keurig, so mine's all pre-measured, but I probably have about 5 or 6 cups a day. I'm on my second iced coffee currently, and it's only 7:40, so definitely starting off strong.
Yeah, man, I never thought I would be drinking decaf coffee at 7:30 in the morning, but I'm tricking my psychological self, or my physio. How do you even call that? You know what I'm saying? I'm tricking my body into thinking I'm drinking caffeine. Oh man, 2019's crazy. That's just one addition to it.
Absolutely, man. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? We got Donald Trump as president, so that's always something.
Oh, God. Here we go, Zane. Now, I am curious, though, for the audience. I mean, my listening audience, I'm going to be doing a separate intro, or I've already done the separate intro. Different story. The Hustler's Choice podcast, but what is your podcast titled?
So mine is Zane Speaks Out. It literally talks about everything that goes on my YouTube channel, perhaps, or I'd say kind of on my social media in general. So for those of you that don't know, I race cars. I raced cars all last year. I'm technically a race car driver. I've got my racing license. But I honestly, racing kind of made me broke last year, so it kind of put me in a hole. And to offset the cost this year, me being an entrepreneur, I am doing digital marketing and video marketing for other companies. So that kind of leads into my YouTube videos. Recently, I've just been doing, I don't want to say vlogs, but I've been doing, pretty much I've been doing vlogs. I was doing daily vlogs for quite some time, but my schedule got so busy, it was hard to keep up. But my podcast literally goes by what my YouTube channel does. So when I sit down to make a YouTube video, I correlate my podcast right in with it. So as we talked about, Gary V, work smarter, not harder. And I just correlate my podcast with my YouTube channel. So whatever's on my YouTube channel is what gets relayed over to the podcast. I always put tips, tricks, things that I've learned, things that I'm terrible at, things that I'm good at in the YouTube channel to bring as much value as possible. So when I put that over to my podcast, that's kind of what you get. I know I think my last podcast I did was 5 businesses that you could start today for no money at all. And I uploaded that a few days ago. So yeah, that was my last podcast, but it's called Zane Speaks Out. It's kind of just about my YouTube channel, honestly.
There we go. It all starts with one episode, man.
Absolutely. So same thing on my end. So let my viewers know, what is it that the Hustler's Choice podcast is all about? Because I know you're pretty fresh with it. You just started it maybe 5 episodes ago, I believe? 6, actually. I started it June 10th, and right now it is June, I think it's June 26th. I have no idea. I did a podcast before. I did a podcast last year called the Isaac Mashman Show, and I didn't put too much thought into the actual name of that. And looking back, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to speak. I didn't know any of those things. And so I decided to basically pull the plug on the show in January over a series of different events. And I was like, you know what? I have a gift. And that gift is being able to speak. The gift is being able to, articulate my thoughts into helping other people. And so I was like, I'm going to go and get started with this podcast. And I had a close friend of mine. She was encouraging me to really get going on it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just jump ship and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to go all in. So I started the Hustler's Choice podcast back in the beginning of June, and the goal is to help people take their hustle and take their life to unprecedented levels that they've never been before. And the way that I'm going to be doing that is by relaying the information and the experiences that I've lived and I've been able to go through, because age is just a number. Like, I've had a lot of experiences just in the past 2 years that I believe can be valuable to another person, because if you really want to become successful, I believe that you have to cut time frames. Instead of taking 20 years to learn something, I would much rather learn it in a 6-month time frame from another person's mistakes. So the goal of the podcast is to really provide value and to bring entrepreneurs such as you. I did an interview with a producer the other day. I am going to be doing rappers. I'm going to be doing media, influencers, all of these people, to really bring them together and talk about what they went through, the different experiences that got them to where they are today, all with the intent of helping the audience. Man, that's awesome, man. I know you hit the nail on the head right there when you said learning through others' failures and others' mistakes, because I know out of everything that's ever happened to me, I have learned more from not only my own mistakes, but learning from seeing others' mistakes as well. And when you said that, man, amen to that. That is so true.
Absolutely. A lot of people want to go ahead and let their pride control them and let their ego control them to where they don't want to learn, or they think that they're always right. And that's just, you and I can both agree that is the wrong viewpoint to have. That's the wrong mentality to have, because I would much rather be the silent person in the corner observing and analyzing than the person who has all the attention on him and doesn't know anything and looks like a fool.
Absolutely, man. For sure. And, I really take that to heart with also what you said about how, you want to learn things quick rather than taken forever, and that relates to me to 2 reasons. A book. An author takes maybe 4 or 5 years to write a book, and you can read a book in a few days. You can get a whole 6 years of knowledge in just a few days, which to me is incredible. Which is why A, I love reading so much, and B, I like to do it as much as I can. But also that relates back to with me. I'm young myself, not as young as you. I'm 24, but when, I had a stable job, making, I think it was like $800 a week as a general manager at Domino's. And, I was working 80 hours a week and I was miserable. But at the same time, I had a stable job. And other than that, I had absolutely no plan at all on where I was going, other than I knew that if I was going to make something of my life and I wanted to be happy, I had to jump in head first, because if I didn't, that would delay me and my success. So now, obviously, last year was my big testing year when I jumped head first, quit my job, started my business, and went all in. And last year was an incredible year. But I made so many mistakes that I'm learning right now, because obviously, like I said, racing made me broke. So now I'm learning so much, not only about myself, but entrepreneurship in general and everything like that. But I'm so glad that I did it. I'm so glad that I made those mistakes, because if I didn't make those mistakes, let's say I'm still working at Domino's, for the next 10 years. So in other words, I'd be, 31, 32 years old. Then I would have jumped ship, and I would have just been starting this journey that I'm at now at 32, 33, 34 years old. So thankfully, I'm 10 years ahead of where I could be. And that's why what you said, learning from failure, is just such a huge, huge, crucial point to that, man. Amen.
And I imagine you're extremely grateful for that as well, because a lot of these people, I mean, you think about it, a lot of these people are in their 40s or late 30s, and they're just now getting started, and we're over here, fresh, young, fresh out of college, fresh out of high school, and we're working to make a difference. We're working to be genuine people. And last night on Twitter, I know I went on this little rant. I was like, fake people, fake influencers, fake entrepreneurs, fake love, fake everything. And I was in this mood. I was in this vibe, because I was thinking about it. I was like, I go on Instagram, and even some of the people that I've associated with in the past, I see them flexing, I see them flexing the Gucci shoes. I see them flexing all of these different things. And these are the same exact people.
And they want to retire their mom,
exactly.
Right?
They want to retire their mom. They want to retire their parents, yet they're blowing $1,000 every other week on designer, on stupid shit. And the way that I view it is, I'm like, I would much rather, whenever I hit a certain level of income, like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to celebrate. I might buy a Rolex. I might go ahead and buy a Louis belt or something like that, but I'm not going to be buying that every single week and making it seem like that's my job. And I would much rather take that same amount of money that they would be spending and reinvest it, invest it into real estate, invest it into stocks, invest it into Forex, invest it into a whole variety of different things to generate an income to where I'd be able to retire my mom, because, it's the cool thing, right? Every single entrepreneur always says that it's the cool thing. Like, that's something that we can all agree on. Andy Frisella, Gary Vee, we all talk about how fake the space is, because it's easy. It's easy to say that you're an entrepreneur. It's easy to start a business, but I don't think people quite understand, and I'm still learning myself about what actually goes and is involved with it, because, right now in my present state, I am by no means where I want to be. I literally am the farthest away, and I've had to put a lot of the small wins into perspective, and really put what I've been able to accomplish into perspective, because financially, my finances haven't caught up to where I'm at right now socially. You know what I'm saying? And so right now...
Amen. Absolutely, man. I completely agree with that.
And so now that I'm waiting for my finances to catch up to where I am socially, because I've been able to establish myself as, as a public figure, and that bears a price. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, I have to be careful the way that I influence these people, because I was like, I have people watching me. I have people observing me. But I've also, I remember I was out in Vegas, and this is just a really quick story. I was out there for a company convention, and we had 12 guys packed in one hotel room. Like, that's a story that a lot of people aren't willing to go through. That's a scenario, rather. Like, we had 12 guys, I was sleeping on the floor, and that's the stuff that you have to go through in order to get from point A to point B, and those experiences add up. So your experiences as a race car driver last year, and jumping from that job, jumping in from that 9-to-5 mentality to working for yourself, that was a huge transition, and I really applaud you for making that.
Yeah, man, thank you very much, and honestly, one of the big things that Gary Vee talks about, and it's honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty hard for me to talk about, but, he talks about truth and honesty, right? And being real. So one of the things I was really struggling with was me being real. And I don't want to say I was never lying. I was never not telling the truth. I just wasn't talking about it. And I started, I think maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, when I came out and said what really, really happened to me last year. And to put it into a nutshell, and to show, another thing Gary Vee talks about is, anybody can put entrepreneur in their Instagram bio. Anybody can. But for where I am right now, so last year, at this point, I was racing all across the United States, from Atlanta to Florida to Arizona. I was literally in LA probably every other week. I was in Vegas every other week. I was literally living my absolute dream. I was spending so much money, but I was making really good money racing. But as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, racing is very, very expensive. And with that, at the end of the year, I found myself, so at the end of the year, I was pretty fine. But tax season rolled around. And during the course of the year, I made a little over $100,000. And in the course of all my travels and racing, I spent about $120,000. So I already lost about $20,000 right off the bat. And then tax season came, and that's when I kind of got screwed. I lost a lot of money. Let's just leave it at that. So I practically was broke. And now here I am, after living my dream life last year. I will honestly straight up say, so I lost over $100,000. Let's just put it at that. And I was living my dream life last year, and this has been the hardest point in my life, because I went from having, at one point last year, over $500,000 in my bank account to practically now not even be able to pay off some credit card debt, because how I would live is I would put everything on my credit card, I'd pay it off, easy done. Well, when tax season came around, I didn't have the money to pay off my credit card debt. So I'm still in credit card debt now. I don't have enough money to even pay that off. I don't have enough money to buy my diesel truck, so I'm not racing right now because I had to sell my truck to pay my taxes. I also had to sell another car to pay my taxes. So through this whole time, which has been the hardest point in my life in the sense of financially, I still refuse to go get a 9-to-5 job. Why? Because I am so adamant on being an entrepreneur and doing what I need to do to be my own success. I don't want other people in charge of my life. I want to make all the failures myself. I want to make all the successes myself. And at the end of the day, with digital marketing, I've really found a home on, although right now I haven't closed any big deals meaning like $7,000 to $10,000 a month deals. I have closed smaller deals, and that's what I'm living off of currently. I have a few more meetings today, and I have a few more meetings coming up that are bigger deals. But throughout this whole thing, man, that failure has just taught me such a lesson, and I just refuse. I don't know how much you pay attention to my Instagram or Snapchat, but this is. I'm going to end this story right here for me. This is the reason that I'm so truly an entrepreneur and why I hate your average 9-to-5, because so many people are brainwashed into it, right? But like, I have a friend right now, works overnight at the hospital. She works every single night from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., making $13 an hour. Works about 7 days a week, never has a day off. All she does is work. Sounds like me back when I was at Domino's. For that whole week, she's going to be lucky to make roughly $1,000. But yet I can go out in one day, in a few hours, and close a $1,000 sale. And that right there is my huge thing, because I get paid for the value that I bring, not the time that I put in. Drop mic.
Man, first off, I want to say Uncle Sam's a bitch. I want to say that.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of Grant Cardone. And speaking of Grant Cardone, we'll have to talk about 10X and how we got connected later on in the podcast. But yeah, it's wild, because within a year, you're able to go and go from working that 9-to-5, working at Domino's, or more like a 9-to-9, because you're working every day all week. And it's wild, because you go from that lifestyle, and then now you're living the lifestyle of your dream, going to LA, going to Vegas, going to Atlanta, going to Florida, going to all these different places, and racing and making good money. And I imagine living out of a suitcase, literally, and living in your car, living in hotels, and all these other things. And next thing you know, because of poor planning, because of unforeseen circumstances and all these different things, you're like, oh shit, this is more difficult than I realized. This is bigger than I realized. Because I imagine, like, if you were to, next time you do this, because I know that racing is your passion, that you're going to do it right. You're going to look at the mistakes that you made, and you're going to be like, all right, I made this mistake, I made that mistake, I could have done this better, and now next time you're going to be going at it with an entirely different perspective, really, and being able to succeed at that and live your dream life again. And I know that you're talking about, you just refuse to get back into that 9-to-5. It's either it's going to work or it's not going to work, and I'm just going to wind up dead. That's basically the mentality you have. And I have to say that I have the same mentality. I know in my own personal life, like, I'm grateful right now to be, to have some very close family members who are very supportive and who've given me that air cover to make my dreams happen and to be, to move forward. But it's really sad. It's sad because you're literally making a dream you're making the dreams of another person happen. And these people get into such a cycle. I know I talked about this in another interview that I had with, I believe it was with Dre, that I was working at a grocery store. I was working at Publix for a couple months, and I had Geez, I cannot speak today, man. I had a business partner. I'm over here stuttering like a fool, dog.
It's all good, man.
I had a then business partner. He encouraged me. He's like, Isaac, you're getting trapped into that cycle of working that 9 to 5. And I was like, crap, like he's right. So I quit. And it's been like 6 months since then, and I've been able to make a lot of improvements. I would have to say a lot of the improvements and a lot of the development I've been able to accomplish has been on a personal level, on a level that most people aren't able to see, because people really underestimate what personal development can do for a person. Just because the physical results haven't manifested themselves yet, you can know that changes are being made. Changes are being made on a personal level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, on a mental level, because, if you're not ready to make $1 million, whenever you make that $1 million, what are you going to do with it? You're going to be stupid. You're going to blow it. You're going to not be able to, handle it. And that's kind of what happened with you racing. You weren't ready for it. And now that you have that mentality, you have that experience, you have that knowledge, you can go at it with an entirely, kind of like gun-ho approach of like, let's make this happen.
Yeah, man. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Absolutely. And I'm gonna kind of ask you a question here that correlates with everything we've been talking about, but one more thing that I want to say is, all of my stuff that I did last year was all mainly for the business, racing, all of it, and it was just incredible. But I did make some stupid mistakes like, I used to be in a really, really good relationship, and unfortunately it ended really badly. So I've been longing for a relationship for quite some time, and I've been single for quite a while. And it would come to the point where, last year people knew, like girls knew I was making good money. And when I would travel, right, like this is one of the biggest mistakes I would make, is that when I would travel to these races and to these events, I would take girls with me who've never been there. And the problem is that I treated them like my girlfriend. And dude, I'd be like the sugar daddy the whole week. I know, I went to LA. I went to LA and Vegas for 10 days, and dude, I spent $10,000. Yeah.
On stupid shit too, right?
What's that?
On stupid shit too.
Yeah, I mean, it had nothing to do with racing, had nothing to do with businesses, man. It was just, your first time here, what do you want to do? Renting some exotic cars, just 5-star hotels, 5-star meals. And at the time, of course, I had $500,000 and $500,000 in my bank account after all this money I'm making racing. I'm like, oh, dude, I can afford this shit. Yeah, and then you go to your next race and you need about $10,000 in repairs, and then you're like, oh yeah, about that. So anyhow, yeah, man, that was the stupid stuff that I did. But this leads me into my question, one of the questions for you. What so far, because you're young, like we've talked about, you're 18. So far in your journey, what has been the hardest thing for you, and how either A, are you overcoming it, or how did you overcome it?
Oh, man. Overcoming the mind, overcoming myself, man. This is going to be a really key point for a lot of people. Whenever you get started, whenever you show your true colors and like, okay, I want to become someone extraordinary, I want to be above average, you're going to have a lot of people that are looking at you and like literally looking and staring at me like, what the hell is this dude doing? Like, he goes from going and being that kid in class, the one who's destined to go to college, and next thing you know, he's not going to college, and it comes with a lot of pressure. I will have to say that. And I'd say overcoming myself, overcoming my mind. I'm actually in the process of working on a short book that's going to be titled, Overcoming the Mind, or something like that. I haven't decided on the title yet, but it's going to be talking about some of the different things that you can do to overcome yourself. Because as soon as your mentality slips, as soon as you start thinking in a perspective of, I cannot make this happen, this is impossible, this is too big, my dreams are too big, and all these other things, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be in this depressed state. You're going to be in this depressed mood. And really being able to stand alone against all odds shows a person's true character. When the going gets tough, are they going to keep going? Are they going to push through? Or are they going to fall down? I'm a firm believer that it's not how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get up. And I can say that just in the past year and a half of being on this journey, I've been knocked down countless times. And every single time I get up, and I'm like, I don't know how I get up. I don't know how I've gotten through it. I just keep pushing. I just keep moving forward. I just keep going. And I tell myself, I'm like, Isaac, the times are rough right now. It looks like it's rainy, it's a thunderstorm, nothing's going right, and I just remind myself, I was like, what am I doing this for? I'm doing this for the freedom, I'm doing this for the lifestyle, I'm doing this for, how many lives I'm going to be able to impact, and stuff like that, and I just remind myself of those things, and I remind myself of I don't want to go back to that 9 to 5. I don't want to go and work a job for another person. I don't want to be sitting around Thanksgiving or Christmas talking about how much I hate my life. Like, man, I was listening to some people the other day, and they're just gossiping about how much they hate other people. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm like, what? It makes no sense to me. Or, whenever you're around family, and they're just talking about how they hate their jobs, they hate their life, they're not making the money that they want to make. And that's not enjoying life. That's not living life. Just when you come to these realizations, you have a standard that you want to hold yourself to. And so for me, I've just been working on steadily holding myself to that standard and reminding myself of the things that I don't want to live. And instead, I'm focusing on the things that I do want in life.
Absolutely, man. And I think I can relate to two of those things hardcore. When I was at Domino's, that's how I was thinking. I noticed, I'm 21, 22. I was depressed, man. I mean, I had no social life, and I really don't have a social life now, but there's a big difference. The difference is that I'm on my own time. I'm choosing to work compared to I'm actually being forced to work. And, at 21, 22, being every single day, I was seriously miserable. And that's when I knew there was time for a change. But going back to what you said about how you get up every time and, how you continue to fight, I think that all comes back to a word that, I honestly live by, and that word is perseverance. And I think that at the end of the day, that is what truly sets apart the big winners from the people who give up. You can easily just give up, crawl back into a shell, go back to a 9 to 5. Or you can continue to fight, continue to get knocked down, continue to fight, continue to get knocked down. But one of those times you get back up, it's finally going to click. And I know with me, with digital marketing, that is my mindset because, I'm selling my service. I'm selling video marketing. I'm selling digital marketing because it's what I've done and it's how I've built my business. And with that, I get told no so many times. I'm going to 20 and 30 places a day, and, sometimes every single one of them say no. But I just keep reminding myself, like, you are one no away from a yes. So I kind of consider that my perseverance. And, that same story happened to me yesterday. I was literally all day out and about, no. The last place that I went to yesterday, I don't want to say I got a yes, but I got like a 99% sure yes. I have a final meeting with them tomorrow, and it's always about that one more. And that's why every single time you get knocked down, you get back up. You are one knockdown closer to finally reaching that potential and finally fulfilling your purpose.
Man, yep. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. And one of the things that I really want to touch on really quick when it comes to a job that I don't think a lot of people quite recognize or have the self-awareness to realize, a job keeps you in fear. You're working in fear because you know that if you're working a job and you screw up, there's going to be repercussions. It's literally going back to elementary school, man. That is how I view it. I view a 9 to 5 as school because in school, if you cheated on a test, you had repercussions. If you were chewing gum in class back in elementary school, there are repercussions. If you hit someone, there are repercussions. There are rules and regulations and all that stuff. And you were at school in fear a lot of the times because you're like, I don't want to go and get caught. And at working a job, that's kind of the same way. You're like, I know that if I'm one screw up away from getting fired. How is that? If you're constantly working in that state of fear, how do you expect to ever escape that? And a lot of people don't quite. It blows my mind. I see these memes on the internet. I see like the jokes of like whenever you screw up or you and your friend are like talking and not doing work and the boss comes in and it's like they're both scared and God, man, that's topic for another conversation. But I really want to talk about how you are finding clients because I know that we have some salespeople in the audience. I know that we have some people who are, working on their marketers, their, fellow entrepreneurs. So what are you doing to find new clientele?
So, I guess to give a little background, I started digital marketing because, like I said, I know I needed an outlet when it came to racing because I couldn't afford racing just straight up. And I had a good buddy at the time who's still one of my friends. His name's Jason Wojo. If for anybody out there who is looking for digital marketing or anything of the such, I would highly recommend check out Jason, JasonWojo, and he's been featured on my YouTube channel as well. But he was the reason that I kind of started, and he kind of taught me a basis of what I was doing and how to do it, and I kind of followed his approach a little bit. And then I also joined a Ty Lopez mastermind class. Isaac, from 10X, I always sort of liked Ty a lot, but when I saw him at 10X, my love for him, it was honestly, it rose to the roof. I have a huge love for him now, more than I ever did. And he was running a sale on his business-to-business digital marketing class, and it's originally like $600, and the full class is, and he gave away half the class for $7. So I really started focusing on that class and taking that online. Hard work pays off, and I would sit there from, midnight till 3 or 4 in the morning. I know sometimes I was talking to you during that time, Isaac, up super late at night, reading and learning as much as I can. So when it comes time for me to go out and about, that's when, you can read all you want, but unless you take the action, you're not going to succeed. So, between the hours of 8 and 3 typically is when I'm out. So what I do is, and what I found has worked for me is, I started off going wrong. So what I started to do, and this is all my personal, what I've experienced. So, this might work for you, it might not. What I started to do when day one was I picked a niche, and my first niche that I picked, trying to think, my first niche that I picked was car dealerships. So I made a list of 20 car dealerships, and I dove through all their social media, put all the cons, everything they needed to improve on. And I went from dealership to dealership, and I, gave my spiel, gave my pitch, and told them, everything like that. Well, the problem with that was it took me way too long because I was spending hours just preparing. And I was spending too much time preparing and not enough time actually doing. So that's when I changed my approach, and that is when I got my first actual client. And what that approach is now, I literally, no lie, this is exactly what I do. Go to Google or Apple Maps. I circle an area on the map, obviously circle it theoretically because I'm not going to draw on my phone because what dipshit would do that. So draw a circle, and I go to that location. And what I do is I have my business cards in my pocket. I already have my pitch that I know because I've done it now so many times. And I'll walk, and I park my car and I walk the streets. And the second I see a business, I get on Facebook. I look at their Facebook page. I get on Instagram. I check out their Instagram. I get on their YouTube channel. I see if they have a YouTube channel. Judge the pros, judge the cons, figure out how I'm going to approach it. I walk in the door. I tell them what I find, and that's how I do it. And that is what's now got me 4 clients and potentially 7 by the end of the week. And that is how I do it now. I don't waste time. I get up, I go out, I walk from business to business. I went from doing maybe 10 a day to now hitting roughly 25 to between 25 and 30 per day. I go out at 8 a.m. I finish at noon, have a lunch from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, work on my video network a little bit, and then from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock, I go back out. And 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock, I go back out and market, just walk around, find businesses, locate them, and do it.
Man, straight approach. I love that. And you learn from your mistakes. You recognize, you have the self-awareness to realize that you were spending just way too much time going through and using that method, and you really weren't getting results. So you saw that, you made the change, you made the transition, and now you're seeing the results. A lot of people are the definition of insanity. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same exact thing over and over and over again, expecting the same exact result, or a different result, actually. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they would be doing the same exact thing that you were doing. They would sit down and do the pros and cons and, write out the list and all those things just for the business to tell them no. But taking your approach, it seems to be very, very effective. So I really want to applaud you for that, Zane.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's kind of how I live my life. I actually saw a quote the other day. It wasn't a quote. It was on Twitter, and you might have saw it too, because obviously we go back and forth on Twitter. And I don't exactly remember it, but man, did it stick with me. It said, in school, you learn a lesson, and then you take a test. In life, you take a test, and then you learn. In life, you take the test, and then you learn the lesson. And I live by that now. I love that.
There's a lot of truth in that. That's a powerful statement. That's a powerful statement.
Absolutely, man.
Now,
absolutely.
One of the things I also want to touch on is you were speaking about Tai Lopez. Now, I'm not going into, is Tai Lopez real or not, but a lot of people, they think just because someone sells a course, they're fake. I don't think a lot of people quite understand how successful Tai is. And then, you and I both had the opportunity to see him speak at 10X Growth Conference down in Miami. And he was throwing out multi-million-dollar ideas, like business ideas, on stage in front of 35,000 people. He was literally doing that. He was going through individual websites and critiquing them and all these other things. But I want to go in and talk about how you bought into one of his courses. You got into one of his courses, but what did you do that most people don't do? You actually went through it and you used the information. A lot of people will buy a course and expect the course to make them millionaires. That's
Absolutely.
what? No. You buy the course, you go through the course, you apply the information, and then you get the results. It's, it requires work and effort. If you want to go ahead and invest $200, $300, $400, $600 into a course but never do anything with it, that's your own waste of money. And that applies to, courses and business and network marketing, everything. And it's laziness. It goes back to laziness, and that's something that I've personally had to deal with. It's like, if you know what you need to be doing, it's up to you to actually get off your ass and make it happen and to do it.
Absolutely, for sure. And I self-discipline, that whole thing, that's what it's all about, man. Doing what you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it. And I think it was today. Didn't you just put a quote on Twitter about that? Like, even when you don't feel like doing it, you got to do it.
Yep. That's how I've been feeling lately.
Yeah, and I've really tested my self-discipline recently, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, I've struggled with it the past few weeks because, with me being in the financial situation I'm in right now, I know, like, my back is up against a wall, and, like, I know I have to put up or I have to shut up. But the problem is doing the same thing like I was doing at that point when I was going out digital marketing like that for the first time, when I was just preparing and, taking all this time to prepare but not taking any action. Well, I was taking action, just not enough. It was just like getting told no, and then, I'm going a couple of weeks and never had a client, and it was hard for me. It's like, I know I'm one step closer to a yes, but at the same time, what the hell's the point in getting up today if I'm just going to not make any more money? You might as well get me for tax evasion, just arrest me. But, I always try to, even when I have days like that, you got to push through it, you got to persevere, and you got to realize that, the best things are yet to come.
Absolutely, and self-discipline also goes with willpower. A lot of people lack the willpower to say no. Whether that's a friend asking them to go hang out, and like a lot of people they feel obligated to say yes. Or if, for example, being the overall power of peer pressure, being in a situation and having someone, hey, you want to pass the joint, pass this, pass that, and people aren't able to say no. They don't have the willpower to, and a lot of people think that it's just such a big mountain to overcome. And the way that I view it is it's really about small wins, right? I've been talking about small wins a lot because I've really come to understand the power of them. And willpower is built over an amount of time. I was listening to an audio by Ed Milet, and one of his guests was on, and he's a neuroscientist, or whatever you want to call it. And one of the things that he was talking about is every single time that you consciously overcome your brain and that you say no, you're not going to do something, or yes, you're going to get up right that moment, it is establishing new neural pathways in your brain. It is establishing new habits, new formations, and it's making you stronger, right? The brain is a muscle. And if you don't use the muscle, what does it do? It breaks down. If you use the muscle, it builds up. And, for anyone going through a difficult time right now to where they feel like, you don't have the willpower or the self-discipline to get things done or to say no or to get your ass off the Xbox, and actually make things happen on your social media or in your business, take it one step at a time. Set a goal. Make the decision. Tell yourself that it is enough. Like, this is enough. Like, I am done. I am done doing this. And
absolutely. And I find another thing that works. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just real quick. One of the things I noticed that helped me get through a distraction, because I love video games, but I don't want to say it took over. It definitely didn't take over my life, but there would be times that I needed to work. So what did I do? I literally sold my PlayStation and I sold my Xbox, so I wouldn't even have that temptation. And guess what? Now I don't even think about it.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just gotta, even when you don't want to do things, you got to. And it's like, I would come home after work and, I work 12, 13-hour days, and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to relax. 2 hours later, I'm playing Xbox for 2 hours, then I go to bed. But now, instead of playing Xbox for 2 or 3 hours, I'll sit there and work and get shit done, and then I go to bed, and I feel so much better. That's another thing. I've noticed, like, when I take days off, which isn't very often, but when I relax or have a relaxed day, I never, ever take a full day off. But when I have a relaxed day, I feel like shit. I feel good at the time, but then when I go to bed, I'm like, damn, I did jack shit today. And
yes,
I hate
amen.
Yeah, when I'm super productive, it feels so damn good. Even when I'm tired, it feels good because I know I put in the work.
That was me yesterday, man. I was literally in this vibe yesterday where I didn't want to do anything. I literally didn't want to talk to anyone. And I went to bed and it's like I watched a movie and I woke up this morning and I was like, holy shit, I wasted an entire day yesterday. And it's like, you're going to have days like that. That's fact. That you're going to have days like that. But just coming to the acknowledgement that whenever you're more productive and whenever you're actually going and moving towards your dreams and making your goals happen, that you're happier, that's big. That's big. If you recognize that factor and recognize that whenever you're making moves and making, changes and doing podcasts or doing whatever you're doing, that's whenever you can really get into that grind state and realize and recognize your true power, your true potential, and what actually makes you happy. Because don't get me wrong, man, I love video games myself. Like, I used to play video games all the time. Like, I was that gamer kid, bro. And I hate that. I cannot even imagine myself as that anymore. Don't get me wrong, like, sitting down playing the Xbox for a couple hours would be dope. Playing Call of Duty. Or, getting on and playing Counter-Strike. But at the same exact time, that's a waste of my time. We're literally living our life in a virtual simulation. Like, if we're just on a video game console nonstop, that's not contributing to our success. Now, if you want to be like into esports or into any of those things, like, by all means, like, if that's what you're doing and want to make a career out of it, do it.
Exactly.
But
Dude, that reminds me of what Gary says about the ROI of a basketball for Gary Vee is nothing. The ROI of a basketball for LeBron James is everything. The ROI for video games for us is nothing. The ROI of video games for Ninja is the freaking world.
Oh, don't get me wrong. If I was to actually pursue it, I probably could have been in esports, but I didn't want to devote that time because I was like, the one thing that really irritates me about playing video games is you sit down, you just get fat, bro. Like, if you're not careful, you just sit around, you eat junk food and all those things, and I don't want to be that dude who's living at my mom's and playing video games nonstop and eating a whole bunch of crap and drinking Mountain Dew and, oh man, that's like, again, balance. There are two sides to everything. The one side is, you can play video games and only have self-satisfaction, but in the end, are you actually happy? That's another thing. And then the other side of it is maintaining your health and playing video games because it's your passion and because you're making money off of it, like Ninja, for example. Like, my ROI right now for, like, basketball, like, I'm not good at basketball. If I was to pick up a basketball and say that I'm going to play the NBA, I'd be an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that whole thing, I think what I got out of that was the big thing that out of everything that I preach, for anybody that's listening to this right now, however, wherever you are, whatever you're listening it on, you get one thing out of me, and the one thing that I preach more than anything is happiness, 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 happiness. Do what makes you happy, and if it pisses people off, so what? If it's making you happy, do it. But you got to be smart at the same time. But at the same time, if you really want to do something and you're going to put in the work to do it, and you have the confidence in yourself to do it, then by all means do it. And as I say on my Snapchat, my Instagram stories all the time, if you're happy working a 9 to 5, like I call my brother, he's my best friend. I grew up with him since we've been little kids. He's a doctor. He works every day like 8 to 5. But you know what? He's so happy because he loves his job and he comes home to his wife and he's happy. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you want to be a trash man, an esports guy in the NBA. Do what makes you happy.
Yep. That is big. So Zane, I do have one more question for you. What is like the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome yourself? We talked about what my challenge was, but what is yours?
Honestly, I think I have a lot. But if are you talking more mentally, or are you talking like physically? Like, what do you? More mentally
or emotionally. You've already touched on physically with like race car driving and whatnot, and the challenges you were faced with. But what about on a personal level, on an intrapersonal level?
So I think the personal level would be, it's kind of a mix between self-discipline and also being myself. And what I mean by that is that there's so much. I made a story about this the other day on Instagram and Snapchat. There's so many voices out there, right? Every person telling you what's right, what's wrong. There's so many people you can listen to. And I know exactly what I want to do, and like I just got to go do it. But at the same time, I get caught up in listening to other people and things that work for them. Perfect example, I know a guy who wakes up every single day at 4 a.m., 3:59 a.m., and goes to bed every single night at 9:59 p.m. He doesn't drink water before he goes, like 3 hours before he goes to bed, because he doesn't want to wake up. He wants a perfect night's sleep. But I tried that. And I kept trying it, and it wasn't for me. and I do that so many times with, just because something works for somebody else, I try to adapt it into my own lifestyle, and then I realize it doesn't work, at least for me, but yet I would keep trying to push and keep trying to do it. Like, perfect example, journals. Daily journals, I have tried so hard to do daily journals. I would wake up and I hated it, and it would just make me miserable, and it didn't make me happy, so I don't do it anymore. And like, for some people, I know a lot of people that, you know, have bullet journals, and that works for them. But for me, that doesn't work. And I say it's something I've definitely gotten better with. But just me being me and knowing what works best for me, and not going out to other people and, you know, doing other people's things. And all of that comes with, at the same time, self-discipline. You know, like, I find in the world that, you know, there's two types of people. There's people who don't know what they want, but, you know, they're kind of in between. And there's people who know exactly what they want. And me, I know exactly what I want. I can see myself in my entire life. I can play my entire life out, and I know exactly what I want. And I know exactly what I have to do it. It's just, although 95% of the time I'm going to do it, there's that 5% that when I don't do it, and it's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Are your dreams not important enough to you? You know, why? And that's the other part of it, and that's the beauty and the hard part of being your own boss, of being an entrepreneur. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And you know, you can't get fired, right? Because you're your own boss, but you know that if you don't do it, you're not going to make any money. You know, for me, I'm not going to make money if I don't go out and race. I'm not going to make any money if I don't go out and get digital marketing sales. So it's either you put up or you shut up. And I think that's the beauty of an entrepreneur, but also the hard part of an entrepreneur.
That self-discipline, yes. I would have to agree with you on that as well. And you touched on how some things work for other people, but those things that work for them won't always work for you. You know, for example, the journaling. Like, I've never gotten big into journaling. I have so many people tell me, like, journaling, Isaac, you know, you have to try it, or you have to try, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, that's not the way I operate. I don't operate like that. And one thing that I do is, you can probably agree with me on this, no one's perfect. No one's perfect. Gary Vee's not perfect. Tai Lopez isn't perfect. Grant Cardone's not perfect. So what I do is I look for the positives in every single person, right? My mentors, the virtual mentors that I have. I look at them and I look at what their strengths are. I look at what I can go ahead and take and use in my own personal life. And then I disregard the negative from it. And from that, I look into every single person. And I'm like, okay, what can I learn from you? What can I go ahead and use, whether that's a sales strategy, whether that's overall like their persona, the way that they act, the way that they present themselves, and then I disregard the negative. And from there, you're able to kind of formulate your own strategy that works, right? Your own, like, how you can go ahead and be better, how you can improve, and only take the positives. Because a lot of people look at these people, for example, Kim Kardashian, you know, how many people would follow her, and literally if she was to say jump off a bridge, they would jump off a bridge. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are people who operate out of blind faith and don't realize that these people are just people as well. Like, they're human. And it's like, I tell people, like, I don't want, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's just, that's not who I am. I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was in your situation. And I'm going to tell you what has worked for me. It might not always work for you. And that comes with the awareness and the understanding that you have to be able to pick and choose what works and what doesn't work out of your own life. So
absolutely, man. I totally agree with that. I actually made a YouTube video about maybe a couple weeks ago on, and I know you can agree with me on this one as well, on, because we both agree with it, because I've seen your tweets on why, you know, college to me is a scam. And I made a video on that. But the big thing that I said at the beginning of the video was, you know, this is my personal opinion, and this is what I've went through. I also said that, you know, if you're like a doctor, you know, you want to be a lawyer, then obviously you need to go to school. But if that's not something you plan on being, then, you know, you don't need school. But at the end of the day, this is, you know, my own personal thing. And I thought I was going to get some negative hate on that. But I got actually so many positive remarks and comments, because people said, I love the way that, you know, you don't tell people, you know, not to go to college. You just say what your opinion is and, you know, what worked and what didn't work for you. And that was the big thing that they loved. And, you know, you saying that right there just really struck home with me on that video that I did. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
One thing that really reminds me of, too, is I know one of the big topics of the 2020 presidential debate, not getting into politics, but it's, should the college debt be relieved? And you know what? That kind of pisses me off, just because people, the way I view college, right, it's not always a scam. Don't get me wrong. College is good for doctors, lawyers, you know, engineers, stuff like that. We need college. College is fundamental for that. But whenever you go to college, it is an investment. if you were to spend a couple $1 million on a company that doesn't take off, that was an investment. That investment went bad. So if you go into college and you invest your time and money into that and it doesn't pay off, that's a risk. You know that risk. You know, a college degree does not guarantee a job. There are people who went to college 5-10 years ago who have the degree and who are still working at the same exact job that they had whenever they first went into college in the first place. It makes absolutely no sense to me, and that also speaks to a whole variety of factors, but it's, you know, you're obligated to pay off your debt. If you make that debt, you have to pay it. You know that with like your taxes right now, man. Like, you have to pay off that debt. You don't want anyone else to pay it. It's your debt. You know, I'll probably get a little bit of backlash for that, but it's just fact of life. Like, if you go and make that investment, or if you go and blow a whole bunch of money and run up your credit card, whose fault is that? Your own. You know, the government isn't obligated to help you out in that regard. Like, I don't know. That comes from a very radical point of thinking.
Thought about that. That's so true.
It's an investment. It's an investment, and a lot of people too don't realize, like, with any investment, you have to do something with it. Like, if you see that it's going bad and you see that college isn't for you, why are you going to continue getting the degree? Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness to know what's working, what isn't. I can't believe I haven't thought of that before, but man, that's a great point from what you said right there.
Right. And a lot of people go to college out of obligation. They feel obligated to go, but they don't want to go. I asked a friend of mine, and I was like, so why are you even going to college? And he kind of just looked at me stupid. He was like, and I was like, bro, exactly. Because you grew up and everyone in your life told you to go to college. I'm so thankful I was able to break out of that.
No, yeah, you're so right. It's why parents tell their kids, you know, they got to go, and then the kids do it, even though, dude, perfect example. So last night I'm sitting working, I'm writing some emails. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and I get a message from a guy on LinkedIn. He said, hey, man, I see you race cars. He's like, how did you get into that? So, you know, I told him, and his response back was, yeah, man. He's like, I went to college, and, you know, my parents wanted me to go to college, and I really wanted to go into racing, but unfortunately my parents wanted me to do this, so now I'm here. And he's like, I'm just absolutely miserable, and now I actually want to get into it. And I'm like, wow, because, like, parents, you know, friends, peers, it all influences you. And, you know, so many people care about what people think and what societal's norms are. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what is best for you. If that's not what you want to do, then, you know, hell with everybody else. Even if you don't think even if you don't believe, like, you know, if you think everybody's wrong and you're right, and you do it and you find out you're wrong, well, then guess what? You learned a lesson, you learned your mistake, you pick up the pieces and you move on.
But do what makes you happy. And that's another thing. You know, people take their parents' advice. Don't get me wrong. I love my parents, but I don't take their advice over my own. I'll be honest. And I've gotten a lot of people in my family don't quite understand that, because if I was to listen to their advice, I would be in college right now. I would be hating life, because you know what I would have went to college. I would have literally skid by. I probably would have got involved with the wrong crowds, and I would not be on this journey I am now, because I know that every single struggle that I've ever been through in life has led me up to this point. You know, if I did not go through one struggle, I might not have met some of the people, you know? I would have not been to 10X GrowthCon, and we would not have been having this conversation right here, right now. And a lot of people, you know, they take the opinions of other people so seriously, or the criticism from other people so seriously. Like, I don't care about criticism. Like, I'll take your opinion, I'll look at it, and I'll be like, okay, you know, I can actually improve. Like, the opinion is genuine. But a lot of these haters, a lot of these people who have very loud voices, right? You know, it's easy to text, it's easy to sit behind a computer or cell phone screen and type something out, or type that hate message. And these people just take that opinion way too seriously, and don't have the awareness to understand when something is making them happy or when it's not making them happy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of, you know, another thing is with what you just said is a lot of people who are sitting there writing those hate messages, and, you know, obviously everybody goes through it. I've gone through it, especially, you know, with us all being on social media. But that's the whole thing. They're sitting behind a keyboard, you know, they're on their computer because they know that, you know, they're like a challenge to you. They get pissed off because they see you're being successful and they're not. And that's the whole difference. You're taking action and they're not. And that's the whole difference in why, exactly what you said. If somebody's going to say some shit about me, okay, you know, I read it, I listen to it, I hear it, guess what? If it's great criticism, it's actually something I can improve on, or, like if somebody's going to say something, I've had people reach out to me and, give me opinions on my YouTube and what they like, what they don't like. I completely get that. And, I'll respect it and I'll take some of it and I'll throw some of it out. But, if there's no good advice in it or no good whatever opinion, I'll throw it out. But I think that right there, they're going to sit behind a computer and talk crap about you, well then that's fine. You're behind the computer, at least we're the ones doing the action.
And that's not being stuck up either. A lot of people would think, oh, because you think you're too good to listen to the opinions of others. No, it's out of self-respect. It's out of respect for yourself and for what you have going on, because you have to do what you think is you have to do what makes you happy, right? And you have to run your channel how you want to run your channel, because if someone else was to step in and be like, oh my God, you need to do this, that, and the other, it's not you. It's not genuine. It's not actual Zane. And yeah, man, it's really about the basis of this entire podcast has been really talking about self-awareness. Yeah,
that self-awareness, self-discipline, happiness. I think those are the three big things we get out of this right now.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Well, let's see. That's really all the questions I have for you, man. We've covered so much. Like, this is a very information-rich podcast. I really have enjoyed it. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or what?
So I have two simple questions, and that's what I'm done with. And they're very, very short, sweet, to the point. If you could give, what is your favorite quote? What is the big thing that, quote or word of advice, piece of advice, thing that you live by type of deal?
It's by it's by John D. Rockefeller, actually. It was my senior quote. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great.
I like that, man. I really do, I really, really like that. And last but not least is for anybody on this podcast that doesn't know Isaac and that really likes what he has to say, I highly recommend Isaac for everything on inspiration, motivation, and he's got his own digital marketing stuff. He helped me out huge with Twitter, by the way. Isaac's the man that's helped me with Twitter. And by the way, I've grown I think over 200 and I've grown 220 some subscriber followers since we've talked about Twitter.
That's really awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, makes me happy to hear.
If you guys need Twitter help or social media help, anything like that, also hit up Isaac. But where can people find you? Where's the good stuff located at?
Yeah, man, absolutely. You can find me on isaacmashman.com, my website. I have all my social media up there, and at the same exact time, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and really any other social media platform at Isaac Mashman. So yeah, man. And then for my man Zane, let's see, we connected. It's been about 2 months now. I know that you were following my journey on Twitter after 10X Growth Conference, and we've really established a great friendship that I can't thank you enough for. But the same goes for you, man. Like where can people find you?
So most of my content that I would give out every day for free right out there is Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, just as you do most of the time. Facebook is my name, Zane Campbell, CampBell. Twitter and Instagram are Z_Campbell22, and Snapchat, if you guys want some quick daily blog/motivational stuff daily, I am always on Snapchat. I post probably 50 stories a day, honestly, so if that's going to bug you, then don't follow me. But ZCAC95 is my Snapchat. And, of course, the big kicker, which I'm really, 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 really trying to grow, is my YouTube channel. Once again, it's just my name. Everything on there is cars and business. So if you're interested in cars, if you're interested in racing and business, digital marketing, that is the channel for you.
There we have it, man. I've really enjoyed doing this interview for your podcast, and then having you on for my podcast. It's kind of crazy how we worked this out, but it worked out great.
Absolutely, man. Honestly, this has been... We're going on 58 minutes and 10 seconds, and I couldn't be any happier with this. Has just been people should pay for this podcast.
Well, the good thing about you and I is we want these people to get it for free. So
absolutely, that's absolutely, man.
Well, it has been my pleasure. So, guys, that is it for the Hustler's Choice Podcast, Episode 7 with my man, Zane Campbell. Make sure to go ahead and check him out and give him a follow. I really appreciate you guys for listening, and make sure to share it with a friend if you got any ounce of value from this episode, which I know that you did. So, until next time, success before rest, and keep on going. Alright, if you are listening to this right now, that means that you are a part of the special 1% who actually listen to the podcast through and through, and I want to give you a round of applause. Seriously, Zane and I talked about a lot of great things, and there's a lot of great information in the podcast, so I know that it was worth listening to. But But because of so much value, I would love to know what is one point and one thing that really stood out in your mind. What is one thing from the podcast that you are going to adopt in your personal life? I would love to know. So I want you to go ahead and get on Twitter and tweet at Isaac Mashman and let me know. I'll go ahead and give you a shout out, I'll retweet it, and I'll show you some love back. But other than that, guys, happy and grateful for each and every one of you, and never let anyone negatively affect your hustle. Until next time, never give up on your dreams. You got this.